Hi, I'm your cult boyfriend. My name is Zach, and I've gathered you here today to talk about the first season of Veronica Mars, one of my favorite things ever. Veronica Mars is probably my comfort show, and I think it might be my favorite show as well. It makes me feel really happy. Honestly, it makes me feel so happy. I love spending time with these people. Veronica Mars, I think, is a really good role model. I think she's a good hero. And this show came out in 2004. I was 14 when the season was on television. And I definitely looked up to Veronica Mars. She was an incredible kind of role model. I love so many of her qualities. I love her sensitivity. I love her protectiveness. I love her determination. I love her bravery, and I love her resolve, and I love how unforgiving she can be. I love Veronica Mars. I have her name tattooed on my body twice. I think you can kind of see one there. It's a marshmallow. Her fans are called marshmallows. Based on like one line from the first season, you're a marshmallow, Veronica Mars. It's one of the best lines, but still, there's Veronica Mars right there. And I also have one. I'm not gonna reveal the whole thing, but yeah, it says Veronica Mars on my chest. So yeah, I would consider myself a super fan of this show. Greatest marshmallow ever. I love this show. It means a lot to me. Um, and I love like every character to death. And I think Veronica is simply one of the best characters ever created. And I think that Kristen Bell outdoes herself again and again and again and again and again. I think that Kristen Bell, I think she is more than extraordinary as Veronica Mars. I think she's really, really, really important to the person that I am and the things that I can't help but believe in that make me who I am, much like Veronica. So season one of Veronica Mars. Veronica Mars is that little show that could. It always had to deal with studio interference. It was always on the verge of being canceled, but the fan dedication was so strong that this brave little show was able to continue and continue and continue in new forms and in new ways. I think a lot of people do consider the first season to be the best Veronica Mars season, and while I think this season is beautiful, I think it's brilliant. I personally think that season two is Veronica Mars at its peak. I think that that has the best villain, the most fascinating dynamics, the most interesting episodes, the funniest moments, the most sardonic ones, and I think that season two is masterful. I also think season one is masterful, but it just doesn't hit as hard, but it's still brilliant. This season centers around the death of Lily Kane, played wonderfully, hauntingly, gorgeously by Amanda Seyfried. Incredible character, incredible icon, incredible symbol. But let's get into that symbol. Allow me to just throw out all of my major themes in one fell swoop, in one gigantic movement. Let me just put out all of my themes, all of my points of interest, all of my points of investigation out for you, and we can bounce in between them. So, with the first season of Veronica Mars, we're going to talk about neo-noir in a post-Columbine, post-9/11 world, Lily Kane as the ghost of the teen dream, the idolization of parental and authority figures, the celebrity of their absences, the celebrity of their representations, teen dreams bludgeoned by the idealized forms of celebrity and success. Are going to talk about rape culture, surveillance, and how Lily rejected the surveillance fetishism of her era by exploiting it and punishing it. And she was murdered for that rebellious act. So what's the first thing I said? That's a lot. That's a lot, but we're going to go into it now. So don't worry. Um, Neo noir. This show is certainly inspired by, Philip Marlowe, by James Elroy, by the crime pictures of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And it made me interested in neo noir. When does noir gain prominence in the public favor? When does noir find itself relevant? at very specific times. I would say originally film noir, it's a beautiful black and white photography, which I think poetically engages with the gray areas of nihilistic moral reality that a lot of people were facing. It grew into prominence during the 30s, during the Great Depression, when people needed something that was a bit more nihilistic, a bit darker, a bit misanthropic. And I think that's the key word here because it reached the zenith of its popularity after the Second World War, after we had soldiers coming home who were defeated, who had witnessed such horrors. America had committed horrors by dropping a nuclear bomb on Japan. The Holocaust is a reality. Women are in the workplace, raining cats and dogs. It's anarchy. I'm kidding, but not exactly. A lot of people like to call like film noir, charge its femme fatale archetypes, the dynamics between men and women in it as sexist or misogynistic, and I think that that misses the point entirely. And it's one we covered just now. A film noir is not sexist. It's not simply misogynistic. Film noir is misanthropic, as it should be. Misanthropic in the most cosmically pessimistic way possible. These are pessimistic fantasies. These are hyper-violent, nearly Shakespearean tragedies writ large. That's what film noir is. And it normally comes when a culture is trying to reconcile something that they have experienced, something tragic, something massive, like the Second World War. And that's why film noir was so popular then. That's why Bogey and Cagney and Richard Widmark, Jules Dassin and fucking Billy Wilder were making all these incredible noir films at the time. Because we needed that then. Because the world was morally inept. And we needed some more reprehensible, doomed, and unlikable characters to live our own demises through and to channel our misanthropy into more determined and specific stars and tropes. And a whole world of tropes, a whole world of cliches was born from the explosion of film noir in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Then it went away. Some say it went away with Touch of Evil. Why not? Let's agree. Give Orson Welles that credit where he murdered an entire genre by making one film noir that was just too good for the genre to stand. And then I think it came back in a large way with like Chinatown, a couple of films in late 60s and early 70s. I believe it came back when our culture, the Western world, was dealing with Vietnam and the horrors that were both witnessed and committed there by those in the West. And it came back in 2004 with Veronica Mars, and of course there's films like Rian Johnson's Brick or Rodriguez and Miller's Sin City. There are quite a few neo-noirs that came out at this time. What is so tragic about 2004? Well, it's something I talk about a lot on the channel. This is a post-Columbine, post-9/11 world. And Veronica Mars gives us the same sort of universe that One Tree Hill gives us in a certain way, in that everything is random. That the universe necessarily does pick favorites, but they pick them at random. It's a lottery. That the world is full of random criminal acts, and it's mostly pessimistic, and you can't really trust anyone. So these tropes of noir, and Veronica Mars being a show infused with a neo-noir attitude and like behavioral like personality, Veronica Mars is a perfect landscape for the neo-noir language. Because young people, the world that they see, in a world where God is dead and we have killed him, in a world where you're not safe at school, in a world where you're not safe anywhere, in a world where terror seems to be everywhere, in a world where you can't trust your government, in a world where your government are evil, in a world where nothing matters anymore. Misanthropy rules again. Film noir returns. And these tropes are utilized perfectly well in the first season of Veronica Mars. Veronica Mars has a lot in common with another show that we just finished covering on the channel called The OC. I think that Veronica Mars, I think that Neptune, where the show takes place, is a fictionalized version of Orange County. So we get a much more unforgiving and critical look at class disparity, at social stratification through Veronica Mars, while dealing in the same sort of world universe as the OC. Which isn't saying anything against the OC. That is a flaw within the OC, but the OC were kind of focusing on psychosexual, extremely, extremely intimate concepts and qualities, existential ones with its characters. Veronica Mars is a bit more dedicated to class stratification. Lily Kane, the ghost of the teen dream. I think that Lily Kane represents something that was lost through 9/11, through Columbine, a piece of innocence that was lost within youth culture, a liberating feeling, a sexualized feeling, a feeling of wild kindness and freedom that was lost, that was identified and then punished by the authority figures, by the concept of celebrity, by the parents, the very people who we expect to be guardians, we meaning young people, the teenagers watching this show. I think they saw within Lily Kane the idealized form of the American dream, which is a ghost now, which has been murdered, which has been slain by those who we trust most, those who protect us most, will exploit us and will secretly record us and track us. We live in a surveillance culture, a surveillance state, because also this is the birth of not the birth of the internet, but it's certainly the birth of MySpace, of social media, the birth of the concept as the internet as a truly effective means of expression and cultural representation, of existence, a lived experience, so to speak. And that sort of surveillance, the fact that we are being surveilled, that we are being recorded, and we follow these movements so carefully that they're almost choreographed by those poisonous figures of authority. Lily Kane, the teen dream, the death of a fetishistic era. We deal with rape culture through an entire episode called A Trip to the Dentist, where Veronica tries to figure out what exactly happened to her the night that she believes that she was raped. I like that that's where we meet Beaver Cassidy for the first time in an antagonistic place. I think he's like introduced in the episode previous, but this is where he is a bit more spotlighted, which really hints at a future nemesis dynamic to come. I think that Beaver is one of the most fascinating characters on Veronica Mars, but we'll talk about him next season. Don't worry, next season I will focus on Cassidy Casablancas a lot, and I'm looking forward to it. I think that Veronica Mars shows us a world where people are falling into tropes, where people are behaving in ways that feel scripted because our lives are not a movie, or maybe they are. Maybe we fall into these tropes, these easily identifiable ones from film noir, because the moral landscape that young people see is just obsessed with not only itself, but its own sins. Logan Echols is a fascinating character. Jason Dohring is extraordinary. He moves like a ballet dancer. He moves with a certain kind of violent grace. He's always doing like something jerky that feels so fluid, right? It speaks to his pitch perfect characterization. I think he's a great example of, I could not believe I felt so much for this character, given the fact that the first like 9 or 10 episodes position him to be one of the worst, most spoiled kids in the world. This is a kid who coordinated bum fights, right? And yet at the very end of the season, he's won my heart. I think this speaks to Jason Dohring's acting abilities more than the composition, because I would actually be surprised if Logan was always intended for Veronica. There's no fucking way. I think they saw the undeniable chemistry between Kristen Bell and Jason Dohring, and they capitalized on that like they should have. I think that was great, because also over the course of the show, you realize that Duncan Kane is not a very good character, and they don't have a decent chemistry. It was awkward because for a moment there they thought they might have been related and might have slept together, and although they weren't, you know, whew, close call, right? I do think that their chemistry is not romantic. So I think that Logan is perfect for Veronica, and I think we're going to end up talking about that relationship until the end of this series. But Logan is fascinating as this poor little rich boy kind of archetype. And I think he's great as the poor little rich boy, this self-hating narcissist. It's a fascinating character. He's self-destructive, he's explosive, he's violent, and he's hypersensitive. Fascinating things to Jason Dohring's performance when he commits a violent act. Uh, his acting is incredible. So he always steps to the side with his mouth agape a bit, like something's come over him. Like he's possessed so fiercely by an aggressive feeling. He's possessed so fiercely by the moment that he is completely within that violent moment. And maybe it's a point where he feels truly alive. Um, he hates himself so much that it's very difficult to get to the sincerity beneath. But I think through Veronica comes into this moral nihilism, this empty landscape, this misanthropic landscape, and helps certain tropes, certain archetypes, certain characters within it reach a new sort of postmodern sincerity. Sure, they start off as tropes, but these tropes are deconstructed instantly and instantaneously. They are fleshed out and given a sort of liberation that is not normally afforded to these sorts of disciplines, these sorts of frameworks within this kind of limiting world of neo-noir teen drama. Actually, that's it. It's by infusing neo-noir with teen drama that these characters within it, everything benefits from it in a sincere way. Because in teen drama, you are allowed to be as hysterical as you want to be, essentially, because everything is far more intense when you are a teenager. Everything is more exaggerated because everything means more. Everything has a lot more weight to it. Film noir is kind of the same way. Every single movement means so much because everything is life for its death. And trust me, people will die. And if you take these two desperate forms of storytelling, these two desperate genres, and you put them together, then you possibly get the most desperate, most melodramatic stage for a huge opus about sincerity. Because you have teen drama with its characters who are dying to believe in something. They need some reason why they gotta go on, even if it is highly individualistic, even if it is something within themselves that's not inauthentic at all. They need to believe in something. What they want to believe more than anything else is in each other, in that what they're doing matters. That's the goal of teen drama. The goal of noir is misanthropy, is punishment. And I think that is the human condition. I think that's the human condition post 9/11, post Columbine. That's the human conundrum, because we have these parts of us that want to believe so bad, to believe in justice so badly. Yet there's this other part of us that is equally as large and even more oppressive, that is telling us there is no truth, there is no justice, nothing matters. But when Veronica Mars is able to make a statement, it makes one about justice. It makes one about young love. It makes one about passion. It makes one about teen dreams that were killed, being avenged. Veronica Mars, in a large way, for me, is a revenge fantasy, and the best of its kind. This is about Veronica Mars proving that a huge part of the character of teenagers was viciously, violently destroyed by incompetent and madly violent and psychopathic authority figures. Authority figures could be parental, authority figures could be those of celebrity. Veronica Mars believes justice will find those people. And justice does in this first season. I think Kristen Bell deserves all of the love in the world. I think she's extremely beautiful, but she's so fucking good in this show. Um, she deserves all of the love possible. I could never love her enough for her work on Veronica Mars. She understands this character so perfectly, and when I look at Veronica, I see something worth looking up to, and I always have ever since I was a teenager. I want to believe so deeply in this corpse of justice that I would die for it. But honestly, she cares about her friends so much. She cares about the victim, as you should, not necessarily about the punishment, although she does say, don't get mad, get even. That's revenge. Find them out. Put them on blast. I love Wallace so fucking much. Wallace is amazing. Great character, and that's probably one of the funnest dynamics here. I like it's somewhat rare in teen shows where like any show really where like a girl and a guy could have a platonic, like really deep friendship. But I'm glad we saw one here on Veronica Mars with Wallace and Veronica, and also like One Tree Hill did this with Lucas and Haley. So it wasn't entirely absent from the teen drama discussion. It's just that it mostly is. And I think that Wallace is a really heartfelt example of power of the individual against a system that wants to destroy you from all sides. I mean, the first time you see him, he's taped to a flagpole by Weevil, and he spends the rest of the time getting bullied by O9ers. Like, he's like Veronica, he's a true misfit. He doesn't belong on either side of the spectrum. But Veronica is very interesting because she used to belong to the O9er ultra elite crew until the goodness that she saw within that was exposed by the death of the teen dream. And she helps all corners of Neptune reach a new sincerity, or at least reach a sincere belief in revenge, payback. Payback for a youth lost to mass shootings and terror attacks. Payback to a youth lost by paranoia and constant world warfare. Payback for a world where misanthropic tropes are all too common in the lived teen experience of the mid 2000s. People wonder why millennials are so self-hating and can be seen as so helpless. It's because that's the fucking world we grew up in. I don't think any of us actually thought we would be alive to complain about it anymore. I don't think we were brought up to think about longevity or about living virtuously and with a just reason or resolve. I think Veronica Mars, well, I think there's a lot of authority figures out there who need to crumble and fall and cry. And of course, these authority figures and figures of celebrity are idolized by culture, by community, fetishized. The teen dream is fetishized through Amanda Seyfried. And although she could find liberating components within that fetishism, it's still an act of betrayal from authority and celebrity figures upon her. Amanda Seyfried was so good. One of my favorite scenes in this whole season is when Duncan is trying to get off of his meds because it makes him feel weird, and he starts seeing her ghost. I mean, I love that she is in this, in flashbacks, in ghostly appearances, but the best part is when she comes in there, like her face all bloody from being bludgeoned, blunt force trauma, right? And still in her cheerleading uniform because that's how he found her dead. And she comes on the couch and is like, "Oh, big bro, haven't you figured it out yet?" That sort of thing. Amanda Seyfried, you are precious. My God, you were so good here. So good here. The relationship that Veronica has with Keith, her dad, is wonderful. It's a wonderful representation of a single father. I love it so much. Veronica has to know how to protect herself in the post 9/11, post Columbine world. We all do. Because you can't trust anyone. No one is trustworthy. Everyone is a walking trope, a walking pessimistic crime narrative. That's Everyone. We occupy this same sort of nihilistic framework, and you have to be so careful around nihilistic types. But when you're in a seemingly nihilistic narrative, it's very difficult to break away from that sort of meta narrative. Postmodernism can only help you so much. It's the fire of creativity and of the individual of Veronica that truly separates her from nihilism directly, because she believes. She believes in a few things, but a few very powerful ones. Those things that she can't help but believe in, they make her who she is. She believes in justice, she believes in revenge, and she believes in affection. And she believes in herself. And I believe in Veronica Mars as well. I think these episodes are wonderfully designed, great structured in nearly every single episode. Uh, Rob Thomas, the creator of Veronica Mars, I have so much respect for. I also love Party Down, so if you're going to leave in the comments you should watch Party Down, trust me, I've watched it like 50 fucking times. It's hilarious. I love seeing a lot of crossover between the two shows. And Rob Thomas is certainly like a writer just full of good humor. Like the show is very, very, very effortlessly funny and very witty, very like acerbic, very, very articulate. It has one of my favorite jokes of all time when Principal Clemens goes up to Logan while he's at his locker and he's like, "Mr. Echols, a word, please. Mr. Echols, may I have a word?" Anthropomorphic. All yours, big guy. That is so good, dude. That's so good. So funny. Logan Echols is one of the best written characters I've ever had the privilege to experience and see in motion. My God, he's so good. Aaron Eccles is the big bad of this season. So I hope you've taken what a lot of what I've said about demented, psychopathic, and cruel authority figures of celebrity. Apply that directly to Aaron. I'm talking about the big bad. He murdered Lily. He fucked his son's girlfriend, recorded it, and then bashed her brains in. That's the kind of world we're looking at with Veronica Mars. Our parents have let us down so much. Our leaders have let us down so much. The youth in the mid 2000s couldn't believe in anyone. Under a Bush presidency, you think anyone has faith in democracy or in politics? Absolutely not. Experiencing and enduring the aftershocks of both Columbine and 9/11, you think anyone believes in fucking anything anymore? And none of it's our fault. None of it was the fault of teenagers in the mid 2000s. None of it was theirs, but it seems like they're the ones who have to experience the most punishment. They're the afterthoughts. They're half considered. No one remembers them. And what happens when you grow up in a world where the morality of it is just kind of despicable and gross? It creates a whole generation of kids who want to die. A whole generation of kids who feel like they're already dead. I'm one of them. Season one of Veronica Mars extraordinarily powerful. I think it's wonderfully structured. The few flaws within it feel like the worst kinds of studio notes possible that I'm sure Rob Thomas had to agree with. I'm sure there's so much compromise involved with these kinds of long television shows, or these 22 episode seasons kind of television shows. I'm sure there's a lot of studio involvement. And I think that the sign of a great showrunner is the ability to work with and around studio interference. And I think that Rob Thomas did that to the best of his abilities here. The few flaws within it feel like they were shoehorned in by an outside creative element. So I can see where Rob Thomas's vision was for this show, and I think he perfectly captured it, all things considered. But I think he really reaches the peak of his genius, and Veronica Mars is at its most powerful in the next season, season 2, which we will cover next week. Aaron Eccles recorded himself fucking defiling, corrupting the American teen dream in its most idealized form for posterity so he could pleasure himself to the betrayal of youth culture later. And then he murdered that symbol of perfect blonde teen dream. And he almost got away with it too. When he didn't care who he hurt in the process, he broke his son's heart. He broke the spirit of the American teenager, bludgeoned it over the head with a fucking ashtray.